there was no overarching theme. It's a body of work that springs from one piece into another. I can see the progression, and I can see the leaps, and I can see the links, but some of them are really tiny little links. There might be just a corner of a piece or a little section, and I've discovered something on that piece, but I've used it in a bigger context in the next piece, or I've left it go 2 or 3 pieces in between and then used it. I've leapfrogged into something else. So there's not a real logic. There's a kind of craziness that eludes me, which is why I'm always excited about what I might make next. There's no real favourites out there. There are pieces that I'm happiest with because they look more finished, or they're more resolved, because in each piece there are little bits where I have actually achieved what I set out to do, but a lot of the times it still eludes you. And that's the other amazing thing about making art, is that once you've made something, the next thing could be the best thing, so you never stop working. And nothing is ever really finished. But you have to finish works because there is a deadline, there's an expectation you're going to deliver a body of work for an exhibition. So you have to make decisions to stop working on something, put it aside, let it dry, put it in the kiln and fire it, and then wrap it and deliver it. But then often there's that need to you just want to sort of walk away from it and make something else, because potentially that could be better than what you've just finished. And there's always that desire to make something better. A lot of this work originates by accident. It's a combination of images that I've seen, images I've worked with, an accumulation of ideas and objects that have come my way while I've been working in theatre as a costume and set designer. All that stuff feeds into imagery that I then kind of bowerbird and pick from, and then they get transposed. And then using clay, it means that there is the ability to create stuff that looks like a piece of metal or a piece of leather, but it's made in clay. So there's that seduction of the material, as well as 50 odd years of playing with clay. You develop techniques, and you develop a facility with being able to make stuff look like you want it to look. The accidents that sometimes get in the way are reduced. But then you also have accidents happening with clay that you then exploit and turn those into a positive. So for instance, I love the look of torn clay, and on some pieces there'll be a piece of torn clay placed strategically just to draw the eye away from another piece of the surface that I thought didn't work. So I'll use a theatre trick of pulling your attention away from one area and pushing it into another. There's also the seduction of playing with metaphors or playing with images that people understand, and say taking 2 or 3 known images and jamming them together to make a totally different and unconnected but third set of metaphors from the 2 that you've used that everyone really understands. Process is really fragmented. I'll be thumbing through Facebook, and I might come across a post on some neoclassical artist or a collection, and there might be an image there, and I'll do a screen grab. It'll go into my pictures file on my iPad, and then a month later I might be just scrolling through, and then it might pop up again, and I'll see something that might be like a finial on a Minton jar that's got a monkey head on it. I want to play with that. I want to take that idea and take that monkey idea and play with it in another way, put it together with something else, manipulate it so it becomes mine, even though I know the source was in a Minton piece from 1850, and it's a tiny fragment that no one will probably ever pick up on, but I will know that I've made that particular transition. And that's the kind of the fleeting kind of it's a hard thing to quantify as to where ideas come from, because they sit there at the back and suddenly something will come forward for no reason at all, but it's prompted by something else you've seen, and then you start to make connections. And it then gets down to technical ability and technical skills, and that only comes with practice. So it's a case of the more you do, the better you become at what you're producing, but there still has to have that unique kind of input to make it yours. So you're not just reproducing something else as a, basically just kind of copying. It's taking it from that and turning it into something else. I usually work on about 4 or 5 pieces at the same time, and they're all in different stages of preparation and drying and manufacture. I might have 4 or 5 pieces on the bench under plastic or sitting there on the turntable. It's probably a week to 2 weeks with 4 or 5 pieces. And then there's there's the agony of drying them and then firing them and then putting them through other firings, and every time it goes into the kiln there's the potential for it to crack or for something to happen, because it's out of your control, and physics takes over. Out of the 4 or 5 I might get 2 pieces that I'm happy with, and the rest kind of get sort of broken up and buried out the back. I've learnt that I don't open the kiln until it's at least 40 degrees Celsius. And I fire for 50 hours, so it takes another 20 hours for it to cool down. So I take a very long time to get it in, to get stuff through the kiln, and it's really frustrating. So while the kiln is cooling down or firing, I often then start another piece because I get bored waiting. So it doesn't end.